Hello everyone. Today I'm going to present you a tutorial on shoulder joint. Shoulder joint is the most mobile joint of the body and the joint that is most susceptible to injury. So let's okay. This is the posterior aspect of the shoulder joint and this is the anterior aspect of the shoulder joint. Right. So this is your scapula. This is your humerus. This is your spine of scapula. This is your acromion process. This is clavicle and this is a coracoid process. The coracoid process is visible more anteriorly, right? This is your glenoid cavity and this is your head of the humerus. The head of the humerus is much larger in respect to the glenoid cavity, making making its movement more mobile and least stable. So, shoulder joint is a ball and socket variety of synovial joint. Another example of ball and socket variety of synovial joint is hip joint. Here, the articulating surface is head of the humerus and glenoid cavity of the scapula. The head of the humerus articulates with the glenoid cavity of the scapula, and the articulating surface is covered all around by hyaline cartilage. About the joint capsule. So, what is a joint capsule? Basically, a joint capsule is a fibrous sheath that encloses the complete structure of the joint. Right? It is a sac-like envelope that forms a sleeve around the joint and encloses its cavity. Here, the joint capsule extends from the anatomical neck of the humerus to the circumference of the glenoid cavity. Here, the glenoid cavity is hidden behind the joint capsule. As you can see, the joint capsule is enclosing the shoulder joint, right? And what is its basic function is that it protects the joint by limiting the range of the motion, and it is lined by synovial membrane from inside, right? Coming to the about the ligaments of the joint. Ligaments play a very important role, in stability of a joint. What is a ligament? Firstly, a ligament is a band of tense connective tissue that joins two bones and helps in the formation of a joint, right? Here we're going to study about five main ligaments, five ligaments of shoulder joint. That is glenohumeral ligament, which is the further of three types. Then coracohumeral ligament, transverse humeral ligament, coracoacromial ligament, and coracoclavicular ligament. Okay, let's understand about the ligaments of the shoulder joint with the help of the diagram, right? Okay, so we are looking at the shoulder joint. This is the shoulder joint. This is the shoulder joint from anterior aspect, right? So we can see the sternum, right? This is the sternum. These are the ribs. This is clavicle. This is scapula. This is the coracoid process of the scapula. And behind the coracoid process, there lies the spine of the scapula, right? And this is the acromion process, and this is the this is the clavicle, and this is the humerus. This is humerus, and this is the intertubercular sulcus. And here there's glenoid cavity. Glenoid cavity is actually covered by the ligament, so it is not visible very much. Okay, first we have glenohumeral ligament. Glenohumeral ligament is of three types: superior glenohumeral ligament, middle glenohumeral ligament, and inferior glenohumeral ligament. Glenohumeral ligament stabilizes the anterior aspect of the joint, and it prevents the anterior dislocation of the shoulder joint, and it attaches the glenoid cavity to the humerus, right? Then we have transverse humeral ligament. Transverse humeral ligament, as the name suggests, transverse. It is acting as a bridge between the intertubercular sulcus. Intertubercular sulcus, it is the sulci from which the tendon of the head of the biceps brachii passes. The long tendon of the biceps brachii passes. So it is actually holding the tendon in place, right? And it is acting as a bridge between the intertubercular sulcus. Then we have coracohumeral ligament. This is the coracoid process, and this is the greater tubercle. So the coracohumeral ligament attaches the base of the coracoid process to the greater tubercle of the humerus, right? And the coracohumeral ligament supports the superior part of the joint capsule. I told you what is joint capsule. So it is, supporting the superior part of the joint capsule, right? Then we have coracoacromial ligament. Coracoacromial ligament from the coracoid process of the scapula to the acromion process of the scapula, right? And it overlies the shoulder joint, that it is present over the joint, and it prevents the superior displacement of the humeral head. Okay. Then we have coracoclavicular ligament and acromioclavicular ligament. Coracoclavicular ligament is further of two types: conoid ligament and trapezoid ligament, and then thirdly, acromioclavicular ligament. So, as the name suggests, from coracoid process to the clavicle, from the acromion process to the clavicle. So, these tiny ligaments, these three ligaments, these coracoclavicular ligament along with the acromioclavicular ligament, these ligaments play an important role in keeping the scapula attached to the clavicle, as as they are attaching the coracoid process and the acromion process to the clavicle. So they are basically keeping the attachment of the scapula to the clavicle intact, and they also maintains the shape of the shoulder square, right? So these tiny ligaments are maintaining the shape of the shoulder square. Okay, about the bursa of the shoulder joint. So firstly, what is a bursa? Okay, so a bursa is, it's a sac. It's a fluid filled sac, synovial fluid filled sac. It is it is acting as a cushion between the tendons and the other joint structures, right? So you can see the bursas here, that is in green. We have subdeltoid bursa, we have subacromial bursa, we have subcoracoid bursa, we have subscapular bursa, right? And we are not going to study all the bursa here. Just we are going to study two bursa, that is subacromial bursa, right, and subscapular bursa. Uh, just a second. Okay, this is the subscapular bursa and subacromial bursa. These are clinically important because you will study later. I will tell you later in the clinical that there is subacromial bursitis, that is inflammation of the subacromial bursa. Right. So, what is subacromial bursa? Basically, what it is doing, it is located deep to the deltoid muscle and the acromion process, as the name suggests. subacromial, that it is below the acromion process. So it is this is the acromion process of the scapula, right? This is acromion process of the scapula, and this is the clavicle, this is the coracoid process, this is the scapula, and this is the humerus, right? So the subacromial bursa lies beneath the acromion process and deltoid muscle, and it is present superficially to supraspinatus tendon. The supraspinatus tendon is a part of the rotator cuff, right? And it is also superficial to the joint capsule. So what it is doing is that it reduces the friction beneath the deltoid, and it promotes the free movement of rotator cuff tendons, right? So it is basically reducing the friction and enhance a free movement of the rotator cuff tendon. So what are the rotator cuff muscles? That is sits supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres major, and subscapularis muscle, right? Then we have subscapular bursa. The subscapular bursa, this is the subscapular bursa. It is located beneath the subscapularis tendon and the scapula. Right, it is located beneath the subscapularis tendon and the scapula, and it it is what it is doing, that it is reducing the wear and tear that is occurring on the tendons during the movement of the shoulder joint. When the joint is actually performing its movements, what subscapular bursa is doing, that it is preventing the wear and tear that is occurring on the tendons during the movement of this particular joint, right? So this is all about the bursa of the shoulder joint. As these two bursa, subacromial bursa and the subscapularis bursa, is important from your clinical correlation. So I have only explained these two, right? Okay, so let's move further. Okay, so this is the write up all about the bursa of the shoulder joint. If you want, you can take the screenshot. Okay. Movements at the shoulder joint. Bending of the arms in such a way that it leads to decrease in angle. Extension, it leads to increase in angle. Adduction, movement of the arm towards the trunk. Abduction, movement of the arm away from the trunk. Medial rotation, lateral rotation, and sum total of all the movements at the shoulder joint, that is circumduction. Actually, I assume that you guys have, relatively an idea about the terms of all the general anatomy, like flexion, extension, about the movements, and how the angle increases or decreases in a particular movement, right? And if you don't have, please, go back to your general anatomy and revise it once, so that you actually understand about the movements that occurs at a particular joint, right? So coming to the principal muscles that is acting on the shoulder joint, firstly we have flexion, right? So the main muscles are pectoralis major, the clavicular part of pectoralis major, and the anterior fibers of the deltoid muscle. For extension, we have posterior fibers of deltoid and latissimus dorsi. For adduction, we have pectoralis major, latissimus dorsi, long head of biceps, and short head of triceps. Right. For abduction, we have supraspinatus, which carries out from 0 degrees to 15 degrees. Deltoid from 15 degrees to 90 degrees. Then we have serratus anterior from 90 degrees to 180 degrees. And then we have upper and lower fibers of trapezoid, that is 90 degrees to 180 degrees, right? Then we have medial rotation. Pectoralis major, anterior fibers of the deltoid, and latissimus dorsi and teres major. For lateral rotation, we have posterior fibers of deltoid, we have infraspinatus, and we have teres minor. And then there are some accessory muscles also. So please take a screenshot of this table and remember it, because it is very important from your exam point of view. And you have to write the nerve, and if you can actually write the nerve supply of the following muscles along with the name of the muscles in this table, it will enhance your answer, right? Okay, so when we are writing about a joint in an exam, so we are supposed to make a diagram, right? So this is the most preferred diagram that you can make with the shoulder joint, showing its relations. What are the structures that lies anteriorly, what are the structures that lies superiorly, and what are the structures that lies inferiorly and posteriorly, right? So this is the superior aspect, this is your anterior aspect, this is your posterior aspect, and this is your inferior aspect. So, okay, let's identify the bones first. This is your glenoid cavity of the scapula. This is your acromion process of the scapula. This is your acromion process. Uh, this joint has been cut sagittally. This is sagittal section. you know uh, try to imagine in your own shoulder, so that you can relate with the things. So this is your acromion process, and this is your coracoid process, this is your glenoid cavity. So superiorly there lies the supraspinatus tendon, subacromial bursa, and deltoid. This is deltoid, right? And then we have anteriorly we have subscapularis muscle. This is subscapularis muscle, right? Some portion of deltoid also lies anteriorly. We have long head of biceps, which passes through intertubercular sulcus, that is also lying anteriorly, right? Then we have short head of biceps brachii. Okay, so seeing the relations posteriorly, we have teres minor, we have infraspinatus tendon, right? And we have deltoid. So you can see the deltoid is present, posteriorly, superiorly, and anteriorly to the joint, right? So coming to the inferior relations, we have vessels of pica. That is, sorry, not pica. Posterior circumflex humeral artery. We have Then we have axillary vein. We have axillary artery, axillary vessels basically. Then we have radial nerve, right? Then we have teres major, right? So these are the basically the relations of the shoulder joint. Please do practice it, as you have to make a diagram with a particular joint. So you can make this diagram most preferably, as it will show all the relations. About the neurovasculature of the shoulder joint. Shoulder joint get its blood supply from posterior circumflex humeral artery and anterior circumflex humeral artery, which is a branch of axillary artery, and suprascapular artery, which is branch of thyrocervical trunk. And the nerve supply of the shoulder joint is suprascapular nerve and axillary nerve. Coming to the clinical anatomy, Basically, writing about the clinical correlations in anatomy, in any topic of the anatomy, is very important from an exam point of view, right? So, about the clinical anatomy of the shoulder joint, we're going to study firstly the frozen shoulder, right? So, what is a frozen shoulder? In frozen shoulder, we have complete absence of the movement. There is a complete absence of all the movements, that is flexion, extension, lateral rotation, medial rotation, and circumduction. All these movements are completely absent from the shoulder joint due to the scarring and the thickening and shrinkage of the joint capsule. Basically, the joint capsule here get thickened or sometimes shrink or sometimes scarred, right? So what is the etiology behind that why is the joint capsule is becoming so the etiology is unknown still now that why it is happening, but the joint capsule in frozen shoulder become thick, scarred, and shrink, and patients recover spontaneously within 6 to 12 months. So it takes a long time for the recovery of the patient. About subacromial bursitis, right? So as the name suggests, subacromial, that is below the acromion process, and bursitis, that is inflammation of the bursa. So what happens in subacromial bursitis is that there is inflammation of the bursa that lies below the acromion process of the scapula, and etiology behind this inflammation is that it is due to the repetitive injury to the bursa which causes the inflammation, and maybe it is due to any pathological hemorrhagic conditions, right? And sometimes due to crystal deposition like calcium deposition behind the supraspinatus tendon, and sometimes due to infection, and it occurs mostly in middle aged males, and the patients they have they feel the pain in movement when they abduct the arm from uh, in an angle varying from 50 degrees to 130 degrees. So basically the abduction of the arm in the range of the angle 50 degree to 130 degree is quite painful for the um, patient suffering from subacromial bursitis. Location of shoulder joint, right? So basically what is happening here is that the head of the humerus is much larger than the glenoid cavity of the scapula, right? So the size of the head of the humerus is much larger in comparison to the size of the glenoid cavity. So what happens is there is that there is dislocation of the shoulder joint, right? So, in the dislocation of the shoulder joint, the anterior dislocation is most common and most prevalent. And I hope that you have heard in your friends and your relatives that someone's shoulder has been anteriorly dislocated. It is very common, right? The posterior dislocation and inferior dislocation, in comparison, it occurs sometimes and it is relatively less common, right? And the superior displacement of the humeral head is prevented by the coracoacromial arch. I told you about the coracoacromial ligament. in the ligament section, right? And it is the most frequently dislocated large joint disproportionate uh, due to the disproportionality of the size of the head of the humerus and the glenoid cavity. And sometimes the axillary nerve is also damaged, right? So with this we complete our topic on the shoulder joint. And if you have any queries related to this topic, let me know in the comment section below. And I hope you guys understood well. So please do share, like, and subscribe, right? Thank you.